breakups, neckbeards, and Lana is real, y'all. Coming up on the Fraudcast.
In the States or abroad, no one's safe from the talkers of fraud. In the States or abroad, no one's safe from the talkers of fraud.
The following goes beyond the show and beyond the gram to bring you all the fraud that's fit to be uncovered. This is the Fraudcast, and now, here are your fraudcasters, Hanakawa and Katrina.
Good morning, Fraudcast crew.
There's a lot of dispute on whether Lana is real, though. I mean, I don't think she's a deep fake.
It's still being disputed. A deep fake?
Is she really real, or is she like kind of real?
Or did they just like go around Kiev with a picture and says, hey, you look like that. Would you like $100? 5 minutes of work.
All
it's
the Lana
yours.
Conspiracy theories. We can talk about that when we get to David and Lana in our discussion.
We probably should, because there's a good bit, and some of them are really funny.
We'll talk about all of the Lana conspiracy theories when we get to David and Lana. That is the talk of the 90 Day Fiance fandom at the moment, and we will get to all of that, including the leaked tell-all footage and all the other fun stuff that's been happening this week. We're going to start off with the social media roundup.
So, a good amount of stuff's been happening in social media today. One thing that was supposed to happen yesterday was George was supposed to be released from jail. And
Of
for
George
some
and
reason...
Anfisa.
Yeah, George and Anfisa. Hopefully people know who George is. The George in jail. Jail George. His release date's been pushed back to August. It was originally yesterday. And 90 Day Fiance Muse posted a picture of, showing the new date being in August. Unfortunately, I think, cameras and press were like actually there waiting, and it didn't happen. So something last minute happened, and he is not going to be out until I think like early August. So we'll see if that sticks. I don't know.
Someone got shanked.
I'm like, did a fight happen? Did he get cocky?
No, I think he was originally scheduled to be August, and then it got moved up to May, and now it's back to its original date of August, probably because of the coronavirus.
Yeah, I don't know. I would think that they'd want to get prisoners out of jail with the coronavirus, not keep them in there.
Right.
So who knows? I thought the same thing. I was like, did somebody get in a shower fight? Did someone see him on TV and he got cocky? Like, what happened now? Because that's like months.
Yeah,
not just
that is.
A few days of a clerical error or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Maybe some good time he had, he lost, and I watch enough prison shows to see, to know that, the good time you get, you can, I'm pretty much an expert because I watch, Lockup, MSNBC Lockup. I'm pretty much a prison expert.
Pretty much.
That makes me sound very entitled. I'm not, y'all. That you can lose your good time, for, I don't want to say they're stupid violations, but small violations of prison rules, having things in your cell you're not supposed to have. And I don't mean shanks and stuff like that, but
too much ramen. They're only
exactly, a peanut butter.
And he had 5.
Right. Things like that. If they decided that they were getting, going to crack down on stuff, then, they could lose time for that. Or, if he got in a fight and they couldn't determine who was the aggressor, he might be declared one of the aggressors and get sent to the hole for a couple months. I mean, there's so many different reasons why that date could have been pushed back.
Now, could he actively volunteer to stay in longer? I mean, I know that sounds silly, but
I don't think they even have that much choice.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like an airplane where if it's oversold, you can volunteer to go on the next flight.
Offer
I don't
myself
think
as tribute.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all speculation. I don't know if we're going to know until maybe he gets out and tells us, or maybe he'll do another, I don't know, phone call through somebody. Maybe.
I don't know.
We'll see.
Well, it would be interesting to see because the last interview he did was an exclusive that he gave People Magazine. So that's, coming up in the world, you guys. So I don't know what kind of media he's going to give, and if he's going to, give the Fraudcast any exclusive information. But we will continue to update you guys, as you know, because that has been a big topic for Friday Night Lives and other things where you guys are wondering as it gets closer, is he coming out? And now that everybody knows that George and Anfisa are not together, then it'll be, I think, it gives it more interest.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like, people knew him and Anfisa were not together a while ago. Like, I know the show comes off as like, she just abandoned me kind of thing, and she's even mentioned that they were already kind of donezo before he went into jail. So, I think you probably expected it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so moving on to our next item of social media roundup, Ed, Big Ed, totally got trolled on his live.
Awesome. This is amazing.
This is like the stuff that you are scared will happen when you go live. So when you're just going live with random people who are like, pick me, like, you never know what you're gonna get. And so what he's been getting, unfortunately, is a lot of underage people, but he actually got some adults on his live, but it was porn.
Very much adults. And this is also the kind of thing, you guys, that happens that where you go and you wish, sometimes you go, oh, that would be really funny if this happened. And well, it actually happened. So
it was a disaster. Like, I thought it was a joke at first, because, I thought someone just mashed up a couple pictures of his live and a porn. I was like, that's terrible.
So why don't you tell people what actually what we saw?
It actually happened. Like, he was waiting for this person to go live, and then all of a sudden it pops up, and it's just the guy slamming this chick, and I'm like, oh my God.
They're both naked. It's most definitely porn.
Yeah, it's porn. People usually tend to be, well, mostly naked in porn. But he really struggled to try and get that turned off. like so much. You saw like the panic. Like, he was staring, and you could tell he's like trying to close it real fast. And you do that panic when like your parents come in the room and you're watching something you shouldn't probably. And yeah, it didn't.
Like Ed's live.
Like Ed's live.
Yeah,
he does tote that you need parental supervision for his lives, but I don't know how many kids are listening to that. They're like, fuck that.
The clip that I saw had a good 4-5 seconds of it on there.
It was pretty lengthy. It was lengthy enough for people to know what's going on, and I think most people know he was getting trolled, so there's like no fault on Ed that somebody did something crazy like that. But it just is one of those things where like I've only seen the 90 Day Cast doing like this rapid, I'll pick somebody, go live with them kind of thing, and I don't know, like, that's always my fear of like, you let someone get on live with you, I'm like, this person is probably going to show me something I don't want to see. Right. So I don't know. I don't know. There's no way to like vet before you show them, because like on other apps you can get a preview of what the person is showing before you outward face it, and Instagram probably needs to have something like that for people so that they could like I don't know, catch underage girls before they actually put them on the live. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the fun that Ed had with his live porn. And then switching over to baby girl Lisa, who I don't even fully understand what's going on, because I get bits and pieces, but she is having the hardest time with other, I want to say bloggers, or there are other pages that she has a bounty out for one. Right.
So the background on this is there's a blogger whose apparently sole purpose in life is to take baby girl Lisa down. And so Lisa has put on a quote unquote bounty, whether that's real or not real. I mean, it's the internet, right? Like, she posted a wanted picture and said she's got $1,000 bounty, meaning like, if for information that leads to the notification, I don't know, like if you can identify who this person is that is trying to get her down, take her down. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't think it, like, I didn't take it seriously. Like, you're really putting a bounty out on this person. Like, you want them dead for $1,000. You want information on it. But the person,
I think she wanted like information. I'm hoping that she's not asking for things like where she lives, because that's a little creepy.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past Lisa, but this other blogger, like, posted a video of her talking to the police, making a police report about the situation. Like, somebody was mean to me on the internet, police. I don't know if there's a
I don't know
special squad for that, but
I don't know. Like, I can imagine that they would just document it, but I don't know what you could do with somebody who's... I mean, it kind of crosses the line of when does it become threatening online, right? Mm-hmm. Putting a bounty for somebody
that was obviously in jest.
Maybe, but we know that not everyone will take it that way, right?
I guess.
You know.
And what was the bounty
people
for?
that lick
Was
toilet
it...
seats and eat Tide Pods, and they are all
True.
very capable of taking it very seriously.
Yeah, was
so,
she
I don't know.
threatening to dox her?
I guess.
Like, was she threatening to dox her and post all of her?
She should. Yeah, just be careful, because like I think that some people could get very excited by that, and I don't know, $1,000 just to out this one person, that's nothing to me. But you know, then we get into that hard area of doxing, and we don't want to go there. So
Right.
I don't know where that's gonna go, but
They went live together, which was really interesting because this other blogger doesn't show her face, so it's
that
really
sounds like a grease fire.
yeah, it's a mess.
Just don't stop. Something else that is involving baby girl Lisa is, okay, so as the story goes, I believe, is she stubbed her toe before she went to Nigeria. And I guess she came back and it was so bad that she had to have it amputated because it got gangrene, I think. So I don't know. I'm guessing this is from the leak. Did the leak show this?
I don't think it showed the picture, but it talked about, they were talking about the story, I think, on one of these like in-betweens segments, like where they weren't recording, where the cast was just talking. I mean, it was recording, obviously, and we'll talk about all that, but where they were just talking to each other or something, and they were talking just about the story of how
Where'd the picture of the toe come from?
One of the bloggers, I believe 187 Anonymous Gossip, had it first. I don't know how she had it or why she had it. I don't want to, those are questions I don't ask. You know, particularly
You don't
about,
ask a question?
yeah, well, the chief, what we say in law in the courtroom, never ask a question that you don't already know the answer to, or, you know, that, you know, I mean, it's okay to ask it if the answer doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if they say yes or no or whatever, but you never ask a question that you don't know the answer to. And I've also learned a lesser, you know, don't ask the questions that you don't want to know the answers to. It is unnecessary for me to learn where 187 Anonymous Gossip got it or the context of how she got it, right? Like, think about how we get our stuff, right? We don't share the leak. I mean, we don't share the sources of where we got our information or the context of the conversations, right? I don't need to know where 187 Anonymous Gossip got the picture of the amputated toe to know that I don't need to see that picture ever again in my life.
See, that's what it goes on. It's like, I don't want to know. I mean, my intrigue is always just kind of like, but how? But it has made its rounds in various forms around Instagram and the internet. I haven't searched through Reddit. Agency, you can probably speak for that. No feed on Reddit.
No.
So it's been all over, and I you know, Lisa has literally flipped her shit because everyone is posting it and making
what did she
now.
expect?
They're making memes of it now. It's just bad. I have a lot of people that, like, friends on Instagram that message me and they're like, I had to take a break from Instagram today because I saw that. I'm like, it's just the things that circulate. I just, you know, I don't know. Sometimes you have to be scared when you're scrolling up in your feed now because you might see some feet.
Yeah. And it's clearly
It doesn't bother
it's clearly
me,
right
like-
after the surgery because the stitches are fresh. She's got like the iodine still on her foot for the
Right.
disinfectant. Yeah.
Well, that's the advantage of Reddit is that posts like that'll be marked NSFW and blurred out on your main feed.
I know. There's also a Reddit group that's like, thanks, I hate. And I can see that fitting perfectly in that. Thanks, I hate amputated toes. It's going to happen now because I've said it.
Right.
The last thing, the biggest elephant in the room is the tell-all leak. So day 2 of the tell-all was leaked / what's the word? Negligently left for someone to find and leak.
Well, we need to explain the difference because the story goes that, oh my God, Erika leaked this, and that is not, in fact, the case.
Right. Unintentionally, I want to say leak. So the company that is in charge for recording the tell-all had it up so that, other staff, I think cast and maybe interns, whatever, could watch it. Well, this link was left live and it wasn't, how you can make things private or unlisted. I think it was unlisted, but it was still live. And I believe Erika had it like on her saved playlist or bookmarked. And, I feel bad. I'm not a pro at YouTube on how that works, but she has in her favorites list of videos and somehow
Or her history of watched videos or whatever.
Right. And somehow somebody caught it from there. I've been to her YouTube and she's got like no followers. That's why I'm like, how did someone think to look there to find it? I guess that's like my biggest mystery is, okay, it was there, but who was lurking that hard to find it?
Well, didn't it first pop up on Reddit, or did it pop up somewhere else first?
Well, it popped up on Reddit, but the person found it that way. Like
Yeah.
Reddit.
Yeah,
The Reddit thread seemed to be posted by the person who found the link.
Right.
And as our resident Reddit expert agency. Sorry, I didn't introduce everybody at the top of the podcast. You guys know,
They know
agency.
who we are.
And Hannah Kawa, sorry. And this is, the male voice you're hearing is agency. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, about what that said?
I mean, it wasn't particularly much. Basically, what happened is somebody posted on the 90-day subreddit that the unedited day 2 of the tell-all was live on YouTube, and within about 45 minutes of that post going up, the footage was pulled down. But
Not quick enough.
Not quick enough because enterprising Redditors were able to rip it off YouTube, and then now it's out there.
It is. It's circulating.
With
There are
the
clips
magic
circulating.
that we have, you can download those clips. Like, it was 10 hours of footage. And a lot of people were able to rip it in that 45 minutes. And then the clips went viral on both Reddit, YouTube, and Instagram, and probably other social media platforms. YouTube, did I mention that? All of them.
You're not going to find it posted because any account that has posted it has gotten those clips pulled by TLC. But it doesn't mean it's not floating around out there. It's just not obvious. It's in the deep recesses of Instagram and Reddit, right?
Yeah, and I've come across them where like people are kind of getting away with. I mean, in my I'm not going to say advice or expertise, but in YouTube, right? They'll put like 5 seconds of some really boring video and then they get straight to it. So YouTube crawlers can't find it. So there's like 5 minutes of black. And then all of a sudden it starts. So those are like the videos that are now there because there were a couple pages that actually got terminated on Instagram for having all the tell-all footage. So...
And the 90-day Reddit admins actually put an embargo on tell-all leak related stuff, I think until after last night's episode.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, there's kind of a negative to it is that we got some things spoiled that I think we were literally wanting to see
Happen in real
organic
time. Yeah.
response from the fans, like seeing Lana or, but we'll get into it when we get to them. But I think we'll also talk about how it kind of made Sharp react and push things forward. And I don't know, it was just bad. It was a leak that I think, I want to say Sharp because I always put like the accountability on them, but I know it was probably the actual production company that messed up. But like, I guess lessons learned and consider it publicity.
So let's get into the show. Let's start off with our favorite queen of the internet, Rosemary and Ed.
Aww,
that guy.
We all love Rose. Everyone loves Rose.
Yeah.
This was
love Rose.
a magical episode in which the scene from last time where Rose was like kind of like getting on him about stuff, she took that to a whole new level. He revealed to her that he didn't want to have any more kids, and then he had woken up and she was gone, and they found her and they were talking, and she was like, I don't remember what she was saying specifically to him, but it wasn't pretty. And then she tells him off this time and this episode, and it was beautiful and such a satisfying end to their story. Thoughts?
It was fantastic. It was beautiful. It was momentous. It is the moment that spawned 1,000 memes. But it's not just that she told them off. She told them off. She gets up, she packs her stuff, and she goes straight to the airport. She's done. And I thought she really held true to her dignity. She kept her dignity. She wasn't gonna let Ed continue to be kind of a jerk to her, which is great.
Right. Well, she gave him multiple chances, and she's like, I'll, I just want to try and have fun and get to know him. And I think I don't want to have kids just was the final straw. So, I applaud for her quick or swift exit because, he comes back to the room because he's like, I'm going to talk to her as if there's more to talk about. And she's gone. So...
What I thought, one of the things that's so great about this scene is that you see this sort of dynamic play out, not quite to the level that Ed is. Ed is sort of extreme in what we've seen cast member wise about their what they have to offer a partner. And we always go, well, why are you staying with this person? But we've talked about this on the show before, the sunk cost fallacy and all of this thing. They've invested this much time into the relationship. Let's continue it. Hopefully it'll get better. And with Ed, we as the audience were upset with him. First, when you're telling her to shave her legs, and then you're saying brush your teeth, and she said it's a medical condition, and all of these things that have sort of been building up. And we're used to seeing that, they just brush it aside and then they continue the relationship and she moves to the United States and that's it. We didn't have that with this. We had the satisfaction of seeing her tell him off and break up with him over what are certainly breakup-worthy offenses. That was why I think I loved it so much, is that we got this payoff with Ed and Rosemary that seemed to be like the payoff I was hoping for from other couples, and it was all wrapped up into one. Like I got all of that with them.
It didn't drag on. There wasn't multiple fights or multiple scenes of them like getting back together. Like it's been with Rose, I think, a gradual build up to the, fuck it, I'm out. I have nothing to gain. And
with Rose, it was kind of like a picture of Dorian Gray with Ed, because he starts off looking one way and then it just descends and he becomes this kind of monster. And the other thing too that I think was satisfying from a narrative perspective is that we set their story is set up that Ed is going to the Philippines to interview Rose, right, for this position of his wife. The idea is baked in that she wants to come over by default, but what it actually ended up being is that Rose interviewed him and he wasn't ready for it and he bombed.
Yeah.
And she let him know he bombed in a honest, but also savage way, and it was deeply satisfying.
It was. It was very, very satisfying. And it will forever live on as probably one of the best scenes in 90 Day history, I think.
Most definitely.
The whole Rose reacts face, that's going to be everywhere forever.
Yeah. That might replace the Anfisa eye roll as the meme that lives on forever.
Her just sitting there like, no. Like, she always had a look of kind of disgust on her face, but like with that final straw, she was pretty much just like, bye.
Girl, bye.
And that's where we leave them, because I think I'm not sure if it was preview for the next episode, but because Ed storms off basically, right?
Oh, right. And
he
then
does
they
that
show,
whole like, I guess I'm the bad guy.
I'll just let her
same...
cool off. Give her some time. No, she just needs to cool off. No. And when he said that, it was like, I'll give her some time alone. She just needs to cool off. I was like, you mother... like, no, that's not what she needs, you know.
She
and
cooled
for him,
off by bouncing. She left.
For him to say that, it shows just how much he lacks in self-awareness.
Well, I think that maybe he thought it was more solid, like kind of an arrogant thought process.
It's definitely arrogant.
She's not leaving. She wouldn't leave me, or I have a lot to offer her, even if I can't give her kids. Or maybe because, you know, he's decided mentally, I don't want any more kids, that she would have time to think and go, yeah, I'm okay with no kids. But it seems like that was Rose's dream, as she said. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, if you can't offer her that, or you're not going to offer her that.
I think Agent C said it really well when he said, you know, this idea that Ed went there to interview Rose to see if she would make a good wife, when it was actually, you know, the other way around. And we don't often get to see that, but... you know, he wasn't expecting that. He was still thinking that him and his carrot of a green card were enough to get past all of his other flaws. And I'm not talking about, you know, his birth defect or his short stature. You know, I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about his personality flaws. Like that the carrot of that green card being enough to overcome him being a complete douchebag. And it wasn't.
And I think what, like, bugs me, and I don't know if it bugged Rose, or I don't know what the agreement was about her son, but he only had so much time in the Philippines to get to know Rose. If you're going to get with a single mom, get to know the mom, I get that, but then you also have to take time to spend time with the kid too, right? Like, that's a glimpse into your future life that if you don't get a taste of, it's going to probably burn down terribly.
Well, he was doing everything he could to not spend time with Prince, right? You know, he was going to stay at the house, and then he was like, I can't stay at the house, let's go. And there's no reason they couldn't have gone on vacation and taken Prince with them. But he was being a douche and didn't want that. He didn't want kids to spoil his, you know, precious... you know, sexy time with Rose, and she talks about how at the end how she misses him, you know. And I remember screaming at the TV, like, you can take Prince with you, but no need for Prince to stay behind with the sister or whatever. And I saw somebody mention somewhere that the amount that Rose's sister allegedly asked Ed for, which was like in the realm of like $75, that he should have given it to her for all the babysitting she did of Prince.
Oh my God. That's true, because like the expectation of like Prince is just going to be watched by the relatives. Like there's I understand both sides of wanting to like get to know her, because you just went out there and you need to get to know this person without distraction. But I kind of felt like poor Prince was left in the dust. Like, mom was gone, came back for a day, and she's gone again. By the way, kid, here's some gifts, bye.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Minus the toothbrush, because I gave that to your mom.
Minus the toothbrush, because I gave it to your mom. I know. All that stuff. Like, I think she held on longer than most with, you know, and then Ed's final scene. Yeah. I'd be gone too.
We also got to meet another kid involved, and that is we got to meet Taj of Ash's son Taj. And
I know.
they go
The
to
kids
meet
are
Taj
cute.
and Sion, Ash's ex-wife.
Who we also get to meet. So yeah, let's go ahead and move into them because we also start with another fight.
This is a
These two.
continuation of the fight from last week.
Right, it's kind of blurred because like they fought on the pier, and then they came back to I thinking this is like another Airbnb. I'm not quite sure.
I think it's the same one, but what we saw them fight on a pier, then by Ash's car, and then like there's like a 8 to 12 hour intervening period we don't see. Then there was the fight last week where Ash kind of lost his temper, and then we saw sort of him getting ready to walk out but going back, but then she kind of invites him back to try to talk about it one last time. And I gotta say, they were both better behaved this episode.
I think afterwards, because he was doing the whole like, I'm gonna leave.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave forever. I have my suitcases. It's just like, dude, sit the fuck down and talk.
We had quite the unpopular opinion last week that Ash wasn't necessarily in the wrong for his wanting Avery to be a supportive girlfriend. And this week, how did we feel about their interactions?
I only know this tone because I am a mom, but Avery totally pulled like the mom tone of like, if you don't like grow and be the bigger person in the argument, like it just, they could have just kept fueling this because, Ash calls her heartless. I'm like, that's not gonna help your case, dude. And like the look on her face of like, you need to sit the fuck down, calm the fuck down, and talk like a human being. And she did express herself well when she's like, you called me heartless, and like, how am I supposed to react to you saying that?
But you come at me and that's the first thing you say, yeah, I'm gonna come immediately on the defensive.
Right. And he's just continually just like, say you love me, da 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 da. And I'm like, I really want to know what fight happened in the car on the way back to the Airbnb. What fight happened in the stairway on the way up to the room? Like, I feel like we're missing some of the, more juicier fight details. But
well, that's the X factor, because I feel like maybe it's sort of his reaction was sort of the product of a mounting frustration. Now, that said, it's never good to go in hot, especially if you're a dude on a reality TV show. It's a big time no-no.
But you'd think he would know as a relationship coach.
You'd think he'd know that. But, we could
sometimes you don't take your own advice, right?
No.
Like, out the
do
window.
as I say, not as I do. It seemed like maybe a charitable interpretation is this: Ash was essentially begging for her to show him some emotion. Now, Ash is not the greatest communicator. I think it's fair to say.
No.
But I think he eventually like got the message of, you know what, it's time. We're at loggerheads. She's kind of signaling it's time to move on. I need to just move on too. And they do it. And they don't really resolve it, but they also like at least turn the temperature down. Both of them. They both agree to turn the temperature down mutually. So they really deserve credit for that.
Well,
right.
yeah.
But the thing is, she doesn't get her answers though. So now we're now lingering on. Now it's almost like he owes her a conversation to explain what he meant in his dumpster fire of a seminar.
Yeah, and he does, and it's perfectly okay for her to want to understand more about how he sees the world. That was never a problem. That was never a unreasonable desire on her part. I think the more issue was that he was like immediately after the seminar, he was not in a position to give her what she wanted. But as time passes and he cools off a little bit and maybe he kind of deals with his own stress and frustration, then it's perfectly valid for her to go in and say, hey, let's talk about some of the things in there because I just want to understand your thought process better.
She's like, I just want to make sure you don't expect me to be barefoot and in the kitchen. That's really like, you get to that point of like, I just want to make sure because that's not happening.
One of the things that's interesting is, okay, so we have the leaked tell-all footage. And again, this is 10 hours worth of footage. So there was a lot of the parties sort of talking to each other and things like that. And what we had the benefit of seeing in some of that footage was this dynamic between Ash and Avery, who had broken up by the time of the tell-all. And we see some stuff in the footage that Avery has this tendency when things get rough to just bail and to ghost him. And when he's having a rough day and needs her support, she is not there for him. So as this is sort of their history. So knowing that was kind of their history, I think it makes Ash's position, I understand it a little bit better, because, Ash is used to Avery not being there at all, and she ghosts him and isn't there for him. And we see at the tell-all that she apologizes for this kind of behavior. She admits to it and apologizes for it, how she is never there for him. And so I don't think it's unreasonable for him to get a little extra hot about the fact that she's not there for him when he would have essentially had a bad day at work. That doesn't mean that I endorse his views that he said at the seminar, this, as you called it, a dumpster fire of a seminar. So, those words did come out of his mouth, as much as it was, heavily edited and everything. He did say these things, and she, for her to want clarity on that is not unreasonable at all. But I think against the background that we know about the history of their relationship, I think for him to want to have his girlfriend support him is not unreasonable, although he may not have been able to communicate that very well because he does talk in circles.
We don't get to see a lot of the history between them in the show. And watching the show and not having the foresight of the leaked tell-all footage, most fans don't get to inform their opinions on that either. So, and then, something else in the leaked tell-all footage that even the other cast is boggled about is, if this continually happens and this is how you feel, she doesn't support you, and Avery thinks he's a liar, why are they together? Like, for the 5th time? Yeah. So, maybe they're just ultimately not good for each other, and that's the end of it. Like, they both need to find somebody that addresses their needs the way they want them to be addressed.
Well, once the show's done, I'm sure they'll do that. But you can never discount the meta layer, right? That
there's so much before. Like, they gave us snippets of some of the first breakups, right? Like, you didn't have me on your Instagram. Then it flip-flopped to, you have me on your Instagram too much. And then there were bracelets that said, I love you, that kind of freaked Avery out. And it's almost like maybe there was a fine balance of, like, loving her enough and loving her too much. Or maybe, Ash was rushing into things, So who knows?
Yeah, well, this you mentioned earlier that if he's lying, she needs to be aware of that, and why is she with him? We see a little bit of that when Avery is sitting down having a glass of wine with Sion, Ash's ex, and Sion mentions that they've been divorced for a year, even though they'd been separated for several years prior to that. There was no urgency, and the divorce didn't happen for until a year ago. Avery seems to believe, and she doesn't quite flat out say that Ash told her this, but she says, I was under the impression that. So we don't know where this information comes from, that Ash had been divorced for 10 years. So,
well, we could probably consider, like, I never make a distinction usually between separated and divorced. Usually when I hear we separated, I'm thinking you got a divorce. Why would you wait almost 10 years to put it on paper?
A couple of years I can see. Not being
that would confuse the hell out of me. Like, him and his ex-wife have a great relationship.
They do.
And she's absolutely gorgeous. But there's also, like, I don't know, were they just lazy about it? Or, I mean, I have my boyfriend's parents separated but they're still married, right? So there's also other benefits like tax benefits. I don't know if any of that plays in, but there are benefits to staying technically married. And then, they actually put the papers in maybe when he was starting to actually go out and find love again that weren't just random.
She did say that there was no urgency to it. So a couple of years, I can get that. I understand that. 10 years doesn't make any sense. So what did Ash tell her? Did Ash lie to her and say they'd been separated or not together for whatever purposes for 10 years?
Or did she take separated, meaning divorced, and because he also says that he's single just because he's not technically married. So there might be a language barrier between,
Let's also not discount that perhaps in Australia, there's something to be gained from the preferential tax status. It also makes it easier to do things with like picking up his son from school. Like kid stuff could be a lot easier if they're still married. Doctor's appointments, after school activities.
They're just as easy when you're divorced.
But even if that is the case, so even if Avery's not giving weight to the actual legal divorce date of it being a year ago, Sion says that it's been several years, meaning, single digits, 3 probably. 3 to 4 years, if I'm being really generous, of being separated prior to the divorce being final. And Avery is telling us that Ash told her it had been 10 years. There's a significant difference between a couple of years, again, regardless of the actual legality of the divorce, that, I know in Virginia you have to be separated for a year when you have kids before the divorce can be final. So that doesn't mean that whole year while you're waiting shouldn't count towards your quote unquote separation time. But regardless of the date of the divorce, there's a difference between 3 to 4 years and 10 years. So is Sion right? Which we have no reason for her to be lying. She seemed genuinely like, oh, what, why? Versus what Ash allegedly told Avery, or led her to believe, which is it had been 10 years since they'd been together.
And their kid is 10 too, right? Because that was another question that came up, was the timing is, and this happens, I can attest to it. Like you separate within like the first year of the kid's life. And so like, I don't know. I think it's a debate that like, maybe he just led her to believe, and he has the personality, like Cian was saying, to like be that, the dog in the burning room, everything is fine.
And Avery's concern is that he sugarcoats everything.
I think he tries to make things seem less important than they really are when it comes to things like being divorced for 10 years or being divorced for 2 years and you were just separated for 10 years. Like, to me, that there would be a difference on that, but I guess I wouldn't pick at it. It wouldn't be that big. As long as I know you were divorced, we don't have like a Rebecca and Ziad moment where she hasn't like finished the divorce yet.
Right.
I would probably be okay. Cause like to even start the K-1 visa process, I mean, he has to be divorced.
Yeah. But being separated for 3 years, having not been with your ex in any meaningful way for 3 years versus not being with your ex in any meaningful way for 10 years is a significant difference. What was he sugarcoating here? He also was sugarcoating to Avery about Sion's reaction to Taj possibly moving to America.
Moving with them. I know, he made it seem like Sion was like, yeah, go ahead, take him, I'm fine. And she had the reaction that I think most mothers would of like, I cannot be away from my kid for extensive amounts of time. And then she's like, I'd be more comfortable if, he stayed out here and then just went and visited you.
And Avery was like, yeah, I agree.
I'm like, hey, that's totally fine. I was like, or he could move on his own and come visit his kid. But, there's been a compromise. He's the one that wants to move, not Cian.
And let's be fair. That's a character flaw in Ash, that he's not willing to kind of like confront the more difficult topics, and he sugarcoats. And it is a source of frustration for Avery that we see often in the show, and a valid one. She has every right to be frustrated by his apparent unwillingness to engage the hard topics and to feel like maybe she's being being danced around in terms of these issues. So that's
and she
completely
makes that
fair.
comment several times throughout the show. Like, we have to have these hard conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And as the show goes on, she's only getting more and more evidence that he sugarcoats these things, and she's, so yeah, maybe they shouldn't be together. Can we move on to Stephanie and Erika?
Do we have to?
Well, I think we've beat the Ash and Avery horse to death, so yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have to move to Stephanie and Erika, which
Oh God.
they were giving us hope last episode, right? It was kind of like, yay, they actually touched each other. They held hands for a little bit while walking down the street. Like, yay, progress. And then this happens, right? So Stephanie's supposed to be coming out to her mom over the computer, which probably is an idea. Like, those are the things that, like, Erika got the benefit of doing it in person.
I hate to be a contrarian, but Stephanie
No, you
was in
don't.
person.
You love being a contrarian.
Stephanie was face to face with her mom in the first couple episodes.
And she couldn't
She
do it.
was, and she chickened out, which,
Yeah.
I mean, the topic is sensitive of telling someone that they should just come out already, right?
Yeah, and
That's
Erika,
really hard.
Erika didn't say that, though, either. She totally understood, and I don't think anybody is faulting Stephanie for not having come out to her mom yet. And I think that that's honestly a red herring in their relationship. Like, they say, well, if she can't come out to her mom, am I always going to be in secret and stuff? Well, no, obviously not. The show's going to air. Mom's going to see it. I think
Right.
that's a complete red herring, and it's unnecessary red herring in their, their relationship plot line, because she's obviously not going to keep, if they were to stay together, she wouldn't be kept a secret forever because you're on a TV show. So I think it's not a valid thing to be concerned about. The much more valid thing to be concerned about is this nature of Stephanie to make it all about her, no matter what the situation. And I will say this, that I understand from my sources in production that her throwing of the bowl and some of that was kind of scripted.
Really?
Well, it
That hurts
wasn't.
my heart
I
because
think,
I was.
I think so. Here's what I think happened: is that the intent had been to script this very dramatic scene, but ultimately the scripting wasn't necessary because they had this very dramatic scene on their own, and that was all actually them. Right.
Well, with everything that happened, like they are having a pretty quiet moment, right? And I understand Erika's look. This happened to me before. I want to dive into that in a little bit. But this happened to her before in a long-term relationship she was in that she happened to be kept secret, and that caused her great amounts of pain. And the one thing that like the one time Stephanie could have been softer and caring and just assured her that, look, I am going to come out, but this condition has to be met, blah, blah, blah. As she says, I have to feel comfortable, which I don't know what makes her feel comfortable.
Pizza.
In the context of the show.
Pizza. In the context of the show, nothing makes her feel comfortable.
Nothing makes her comfortable.
Well,
So-
wait. You did notice they had pizza at that party with her friends, and then she relaxed.
Pizza and beer seems to be the key. Yeah, they had that thing with the friends where I thought that was going to turn to a shit show, and it actually helped her get more acquainted with the friends. But
Adam the Savage is still biding his time.
okay, you're going to laugh, but like, I see you and Adam. If you turn the right way, I don't know if you've heard this before.
It's not the
You
worst
kinda look-
insult I've ever been given.
You kind of look like Adam a little bit. If anyone wants to know what agency looks like, kind of looks like Adam.
It's not the worst thing anyone said to me. So don't worry.
And he's not shaving during this pandemic, so
A lot of men aren't, apparently.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I feel like yes, and I think Stephanie also addressed this on her Instagram as a post of she lost her temper. I would hope that her embarrassment from that helps her learn how to control her temper, because that was an extreme overreaction of what Erika told her. Like, she was just coming out about something that happened in her life that hurt her, just like Stephanie has, and Erika was there to support her. And, Stephanie ends up throwing bowls and telling her to get the fuck out, and and running away again.
I have been called an Erika apologist, although nobody seems to mind because everybody seems to be anti-Stephanie.
Everyone loves Erika. Yeah.
And here's the thing, and what ultimately I agree with Erika here and what she said about don't play with my heart just because you can't figure out yours. I think that's, was a fantastic line. I think Erika was great about this. I do see what Stephanie's point is. It was an inappropriate way to bring it up, and it was an inappropriate reaction. But her ultimate point was, wait, I thought we were being honest and vulnerable with each other. And there was this 10-year relation. She's seen it as there was this 10-year relationship that you were involved in that I had no knowledge about. And it was a very painful relationship because you were kept a secret, and I didn't know any of this, and how, we were supposed to be, having gotten to know each other. Why didn't I know this very huge, big thing for you? If it's that big of a deal that it's affecting you now, I should have known about it because of how close we were getting. What I think was happening is you've got Erika arguing A and Stephanie arguing B, and so what ultimately happened is you have, cereal bowls clashing, flying across the room.
With those poor bread rolls uneaten. Sad.
Uneaten carbs.
I don't know, because you can be open, but sometimes you don't feel comfortable enough yet, to take Stephanie's words, to come out with something that deep. Mm-hmm. Like, in a relationship, you are not obligated to give a roster of everyone that you've been involved with.
Absolutely.
From the front.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm pretty sure, like, Erika gets to see all of Stephanie's experience because she can just scroll down her YouTube feed and see them. But there might have been more hurt involved where Erika didn't want to just talk about it. And if it was off and on for, 10 years, which is something I want to inquire because, I don't know, it's just a question. She's 23, so this relationship happened between the ages of 13 and 23,
wow.
Right?
Yeah.
You think about 10 years.
Yeah.
And if this person was keeping her a secret and she just came out, wasn't she technically keeping the girl a secret too?
Yeah, sure.
Maybe not from friends. Maybe her intention was she hid it from friends and she was openly out with friends, but I'm just kind of, I guess that's the only question I had from it was like, okay, so a relationship from 13, so your teenage years are really bad relationships in the first place. Doesn't matter if you're gay or not. It's just, everything is just bad. And then, so if it was, or I'm just assuming it was 10 years up to 23 because I don't know how young she was dating, but if she just came out of this relationship, I can draw on how much it still is affecting her, is what I'm saying.
I have a couple of thoughts, if you would indulge me.
Sure.
The first thing is that there's such a thing as too much upfront sharing. Like, if you've got, a past, and you're like, well, let me tell you about, the 15 traumatic things that happened to me. I know it's only our third date, but I really want you to know this. That's to another person that could be like, holy shit, why are you telling me all this? So,
right.
Maybe Erika is trying to, just
just ease her into it,
or
tell her, hey, my fear of you not coming out stems from this extremely bad experience I had with someone else not wanting to come out.
Yeah, what Stephanie should have done was been like, oh, wow, okay. Instead, she made it all about her, about, oh my God, you didn't tell me this. And I don't agree with that. I don't want to be accused of being a Steph apologist too. I can't win here.
Well, I'm an unabashed Erika apologist, so I'll take that heat.
I think it's fair to debate both sides.
Yes.
And then people are going to have their own opinions, and they may clash with ours, and that's fine.
And that's totally fine.
But here's another thing, though. Stephanie's source income is from posting private information about herself through her YouTube channel by being very open about her life. Maybe Erika didn't want that information potentially out there until she knew she could trust Stephanie to have some judiciousness about what she shares, what she doesn't share. That's perfectly reasonable. So.
Right, or she just didn't feel the need.
Yeah.
Either way.
Things come out in time. right?
Yeah.
Over periods of time. Oh yeah, there was this time I had this happen to me, and that does come out in time. And this is one of those times where that information came out, and Stephanie should have taken it in that context, and instead she took it in a completely different context as, oh my God, you've been lying to me, which is not necessarily the way that
Wasn't
it
really
was.
lying, just probably omitted some information.
Or had chosen to not yet reveal.
And she's like, yeah, I'm
Right.
telling you now, you know.
But the going into like, who was it? How long was it? What color shirts did you guys like to wear together? Where'd you go to dinner?
And to make that into an entire, you haven't been open, honest, and vulnerable with me this whole time is completely not accurate as
It's
well.
also,
either.
Right.
I have a real problem with her saying you haven't been vulnerable with me when she was just vulnerable with you.
This is,
Right?
This
It's
is
like,
true.
yep, just go back inside the turtle shell on that one.
Yeah,
You
it's
know.
like that meme you always see, like with the pink blob that comes out of the box and then it gets punched, and it then
What?
says never again.
I
kind of
don't know
memes are
what
you
you're
reading?
talking
I'll
about.
send it to you guys later. You can post it
No
on the
idea.
IG.
No idea
We'll-
what you're
we'll
talking
see.
about.
We'll see.
Post it in the show notes. It's okay, you guys.
Yeah, no. David and Lana.
Now it's not David and Macintosh anymore. It is David and Lana.
Yes.
Because we get to find out that Lana is indeed a real physical person that looks like the pictures that were on the internet.
So just a brief primer is, so during the tell-all, the leaked footage, there was footage of actually meeting Lana, giving her gifts, proposing to her. All of that footage was shown to the cast members at the tell-all, and they discussed it. Originally, the TLC episode for this episode just had ended with David standing in the square waiting to see. After the tell-all footage leak, they added in the Lana reveal. And we know this because there was people who bought in advance the episode from like YouTube. In the episode that actually aired, apparently the TLC editors at the very last minute edited that in because it has already gotten out.
It already got out, so what's the suspense anymore?
Yeah, so they added that in, and now that's been the biggest thing that's been talked about that came out of the tell-all leaks, and that Lana's real, and this has spawned a bunch of conspiracy theories. So let's discuss that before we close out that show, the Before the 90 Days.
The Lana conspiracy theories.
The Lana conspiracy
the one
theories.
that I have heard the most was that TLC found a way to contact the agency to either pay or persuade Lana to show up on the show and pretend like she met him.
Yes.
Right? So in like addition to that, there's also probably the agency's reputation on the line, right? So these agencies have to uphold a certain like reputation that they're legit, people aren't being scammed. And so we're showing the site she's on, and it would benefit the agency if they were to
Be a success story.
provide the person to show that their website isn't full of scammers. So that's one theory that's out there to kind of go, oh, the agency and TLC pulled it together to just, make a story. They're really not, that it was fake. That's one I've heard. I don't know what you guys have heard.
That one's logical, at least.
It is pretty logical.
What are some of the other ones that we've heard?
Get the tinfoil out.
Most of the theories I see are surrounded by they paid Lana to pretend to be his girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
Is she actually just someone that they like put out a casting notice for? Do you look like this woman? Do you want to make $500?
Right. Like from the beginning, there were some who also said like they found someone and then kind of like William's situation where they just used that photo instead of like a real person. They used an Ukrainian actress or something like that to be on the site. But that doesn't make much sense either. Since, she has so many pages. I wouldn't invest that much in one scene with TLC.
You brought up the agencies that she
Stop talking about me.
I know. I get what. but we can't bring that up without talking about some of the backlash that David has been talking about on social media, that the backlash that Lana and these agencies are now experiencing, because allegedly now, according to some sources, is that Lana and the agencies are now because of appearing on the show, making it look like Lana's a scammer. All of these agencies, including Lana's, are being portrayed in Ukraine as being scam websites now, and that they're experiencing this backlash, and everyone's mad at them.
Not anymore, since they saw her now. So I'm pretty sure those agencies have all chilled since she's been
hopefully
produced on the show. Now people don't, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like it cooled that heat that they were getting, because look, he actually met her, and we know from the leaks,
people really want Lana not to be real and want David to be scammed. So I think even now that we've seen her revealed, people are still like, well, he sent her money and he sent her gifts, and which, I mean, if you were in a relationship, you give gifts to each other, right? So that to me isn't not like a tell-all.
Well, if you do the math, because we also find out that it's not just 100,000, it was actually about 300,000.
Yeah.
Right? Divide that up between 20 years.
20 years? You mean 7?
Yeah, 7 years. My brain is just all over the place. But yeah, so I mean, you divide it up with how much money he claims he makes, it's probably not that big of a deal. Mm-hmm. To us, I would be like, no way. Like,
Right.
that's a house that you did, and then you still say she's poor. Like, I don't know. It would just kind of like, how is she poor if you spent this much money? But I'm assuming it includes like traveling, hotels, whatever, and probably not just with Lana, probably in general, right? Like,
yeah,
all the people that he's talked to.
Well, like I said, people really want David to be scammed. They created this idea in their head that they want that Lana's a scam, and they still want it to be a scam. Well, what about all the times she ghosted him and all of this, and her brother really died. You can at least prove that, but she had hockey games and this, all of this stuff. So people,
the hockey game. Can we talk about the hockey
people
game?
are still really wanting Lana to not be, because they can't believe that somebody who looks like Lana would want somebody who looks like David, and they can't reconcile that. And so,
but when you see Lana, I mean, she's kind of plain looking.
Yeah,
she's not supermodel hot goddess.
I mean,
she's not ugly,
made up
either.
nicely in those photos, sure, but
yeah, she's very well. The agencies probably make the photos look gorgeous, because how else are you going to get clicks, right?
Right,
like,
of course.
We're not going to put some unkept person on the site. We're going to do a glamour shoot. We're going to Photoshop a little bit. We're going to make it look good. But yeah, she looked. I'm saying this very nicely, average. Like, she looked like a normal person that I could see Dave just falling in love for.
Which is another conspiracy theory. They're going, oh, that's not even the girl from the photos.
That's not even the girl. Yeah. Dave will not be able to win on this one.
No.
He's going to have folks that go, oh my God, she's real. That's great. And then you're going to have the ones who are like, something's fishy about this.
Well,
and I'm totally with them, because the first 85% of his story seems freaking fabricated. So why would we believe now that this last percentage is actually real, when we've seen all this craziness up front?
And some of the leaked tell-all footage shows him talking about the transactional nature of his relationship with Lana, so he admits to it. And
he's okay with it.
Yeah.
He's fine. That's like what he wants. I think people are like, oh, he's just being scammed. He's kind of like, that's what I want. I enjoy the chase, and I want to go after, whatever he wants to go after.
Yeah. Yeah. He's perfectly fine with the transactional nature of the relationship. And, he gets to have this woman allegedly on his arm. He talks about on the tell-all leak footage that they have started the K-1 process, which we know from our intrepid professional agency that there's no processing of visas at this point. So
they could still have filed the petition, but they're not going to get the visa issued for a while.
I can imagine he would get stopped real quick on that.
Jeffrey?
I only want to talk about him because we have not talked about him this far. To talk about his reaction to Varya saying no. I think that's kind of where that conversation will surround itself.
Well, I just want to say that, like, I love Varya. I think that her decision to just not succumb to the pressure in Jeffrey was very honest and true, and kind of staying true to what her gut was telling her. I was 100% there for that.
Well, it's kind of like he came to Russia. I think she was, feeling him out, seeing how it was. And then he drops bombs on her that, maybe I would say maybe we should step back and continue to get to know each other. Because I have no clue what else you have to tell me that's from, your closet of secrets.
This hasn't been enough for me to be comfortable marrying you.
Exactly.
Right. But she didn't want to separate from him. And so that's where his reaction just kind of like... I guess it threw me off because he was just like, okay, fine, I'm leaving then. Bye.
It's just a big
he
baby.
totally, he just flips.
It's either
and
my
walks away, and
timeline
I'm
or
like,
none at all. Yeah.
I was like, wow. Like, he's like, I'm not coming back. I'm like, oh, Jesus. Okay. Varya?
And she was just like, just because I'm saying no to marrying you right now doesn't mean I'm ending the relationship. And he was like, yeah, well, if you're not saying yes, these weren't exactly...
I have no reason to come back.
Yeah, his actions and words were like, if you're not saying yes to getting married, then the relationship's over. And she wasn't necessarily saying that.
Well, he was.
But
that was his condition.
Yeah.
She didn't say yes. Because at first it was like, oh, she only wants to get married to go to America. And then maybe he was banking that he was going to get the yes. He asked in an appropriate way, appropriate place. And she was honest with him. Mm-hmm. I feel like we're going too fast. Like, that wouldn't have triggered me to say, fuck it, it's over, I'm leaving. Mm-hmm. But whatever.
Yeah, I got a lot of comments in DMs and stuff talking about the manipulative aspect of Jeffrey's behavior in this whole regard. But we can't talk about it in a bubble, in a vacuum, because here's the thing. When he was done with filming is when some of these allegations that are against him, that are pending, that this is part of why people aren't talking about him, because he has these pending allegations against him. Some occurred before filming and some of the incidents occurred after filming. And this is important to know, is because the incidents that occurred after filming, in which these are all allegations at this point, have not been proven. I'm not saying that he did the things that he's accused of. These are allegations, but they occurred with the woman, this alleged victim who filed these allegations is this woman that he has been involved with for a significant period of time, which would mean he was with her before he went to Russia to see Varya. So what does that make his whole trip to Russia with Varya? I've watched enough before the 90 days to know that they fully expect it and want it to end, each story to end with a proposal. So that begs the question, was this proposal even real? Or was it just, let's just do this. This relationship isn't real, or the relationship isn't, completely genuine or whatever. And also, by the way, he is still technically legally married to one of the other alleged victims in these allegations.
That's really, really messy.
Yes.
And it makes me wonder if Varya even knew. Like, because her reaction didn't seem staged. I'm not saying she's just a great actress, but I don't know. I think most fan reaction was that she was extremely hurt by what he said. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to be said about this. Anything else? Do you have any insights, any thoughts, agency, before we just say, Jeffrey's an asshole and let's move on?
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to potentially stick my foot in my mouth by calling Jeffrey things that we don't have sufficient evidence to prove, even though I think he's a big asshole.
Yeah, that seems to be the theme for this season. Is
although it is another situation where Jeffrey thought his sort of that like he was secure with Varya and he was going to interview her, but ended up she was interviewing him. It was
another situation.
It was similar. It wasn't as dramatic as Ed and Rose, but it was still kind of a similar dynamic where the script flipped, and she ended up deciding, you know what, you're not for me, or you're not for me yet.
Well, that's kind of the theme of the 90 before the 90 days, right? Like they all have these secrets or something that they have to come out with, and then it turns into, does the other person want to be with me still? Like we saw the same recipe in the previous season.
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite things about Before the 90 Days is when these people in the other countries are kind of say, you know what, like going to America isn't worth you. Or I have priorities here that I care about, because there is sometimes we get into our heads that everyone just wants to come here, and there are a lot of people who want to come here. Obviously, I've dealt with that a lot, but not everyone does, and everyone has and not everyone's going to sacrifice anything for anyone to do it, and I think it kind of helps dignify people in some of the poorer parts of the world, and I like that. I like seeing that.
Well, especially when, if they're living happy and comfortable where they are, and it's hard from, this angle to say, we love our country, right? And so we go, why wouldn't anybody want to live here? So, but there has to be the right conditions. Erika, Ash, they're probably living pretty fine where they are. Mm-hmm. They're not searching for a better life, right?
Australia's
but
nice.
They're just looking for a partner. Yeah.
Well, I've debated going to visit. Ash is talking about walking down the freaking sidewalk to a beach for his morning meditation. I'm like,
yeah, I'll take that.
It's 110 outside, so screw you.
One of the things that I really enjoy about Before the 90 Days also is that it's not a foregone conclusion that the relationship will work out.
Mm-hmm. Right.
With regular 90 days, you almost always, and I think always, I'd have to check, but it ends in a wedding. There's never the breakup and the cast member going back to their country.
Because they're usually already there. I don't think anyone is ever not.
Except for, Marcel, but he came back. So
he technically did leave, but he did come back.
Right. But the thing about Before the 90 Days, which is so intriguing, is this concept of it's not a foregone conclusion that they're going to be together. And in fact, I'd have to look at the numbers, but a lot of, if not most of the couples from Before the 90 Days are no longer together. And we see this actually in the quarantine edition when the collective, everybody went like, who? When they showed Patrick and Miriam on the screen, everyone was like, who?
Right.
Who was that?
Yeah.
I felt bad because I did too. I was like,
yeah.
Who is this guy who says, okay, we'll get there. We'll get there. Ugh. But
well, we have to get there quickly.
It's okay. It's okay.
We got to move on.
In conclusion to Before the 90 Days, we see that there are 3 weeks left. So we're going to get 15 episodes this season.
Total. Yeah.
Total, which I think on par is maybe a couple extras.
That's about normal. I think 15 to 16 is about normal for them.
Yeah, kind of ranges. And then we have, of course, our 2-part tell-all. Mm-hmm. So, we expect with the Before the 90 Days, they're also going to show them back home usually. They kind of do a conclusion episode of what's happening now. So... it's another chance for us to see, Avery when she's back, what their decision is. I'm assuming Ed back and what he's going to do. And, maybe Stephanie will come out to her mom when she can do it in person again. We didn't get day 1 of the tell-all spoiled for us, so we still have that to look forward to.
Right, and some of the things that were interesting about the tell-all leaked, and you guys are getting it was 10 hours worth. We certainly can't have an entire show recapping it, dedicated to it. But there's a lot of interesting stuff that did come out as far as Lisa, what she calls Usman.
Lisa, that is an entire conversation.
But we'll briefly touch on it.
We will have to discuss it. I don't want anyone to think that we're not going to discuss that. I think it's been around that she, drops the N-word. Who knows if that's going to make the cut? I would think that TLC would probably cut that. But it was still said, and it really changes the way people look at Lisa, right? Most people. And it hasn't been addressed, and I feel like it's going to have to be addressed for people to go, I don't know any other way for her to address it other than to apologize.
But I think it's necessary for us to mention that we know that it's there. People have asked us what we think about it.
I think people are just curious, like, you know, kind of a meter of how angry are you. Personally, me, I think it's completely inappropriate. Like, that word never escapes my own mouth, and I don't tolerate it around me. But everyone has a different tolerance, and so it's really hard to put a whole blanket of it's okay, it's not. I have like friends from high school that had no problem with, you know, slapping the word around. For me, it made me uncomfortable.
It makes me uncomfortable. I don't think there's ever an appropriate time for that word.
Never. in my opinion, never.
So if people are asking what the Fraudcast thinks, you know, we as a team do not ever condone the use of the N-word. And Lisa's use of it, calling Usman that, and her alleged belief that because she is married to him, that she has the right or authority to call him that, I completely disagree with.
Yeah, or that she grew up in less than ideal living situations. Like, that doesn't make it okay ever. Like, you can't use that. Well, I'm married to someone who's black, or I grew up around black friends. Like, I don't care. Like, it's just not.
But whataboutism and
yeah. Like, I got scolded. Like, my mom would probably like flip her shit if I ever said that word. So, you know, that's what I grew up with, is not. So that's where I am.
Yeah, so that's our thought on that. It'll be interesting to see what TLC does with that footage on the actual
I have a feeling it's going to be edited out because TLC does not want to deal with that. I'm pretty sure.
So self-quarantine edition. Some people don't like self-quarantine edition. I was not a big fan of this particular show because Family Chantel.
It had Pow in it.
Family Chantel, Russ and Pow. I'll be honest with you guys. I fast forwarded through Family Chantel. I fast forwarded through Russ and Pow. I watched Ben and his neckbeard and Akini. And I watched Patrick and Miriam because I remember them from their season of Before the 90 Days. They were like one of the original.
I think you're the only one that remembered them.
I remembered them.
They were the original fake couple. So,
oh, that's right, because she was engaged or something.
She
never
had
dived
another
too much into
boyfriend,
it.
and so they're like the whole thing was he just wanted to be on TV, and that was before I really started investigating. But they were a complete fake couple. So my thoughts, that was pretty much my thoughts on the quarantine edition. Agency.
I thought it was interesting that they gave Miriam more screen time than Patrick. I think that's true. I haven't measured it.
It seemed that way.
Patrick did not make himself look good on self-quarantine edition. I got some thoughts on some of his choices. Miriam availed herself wonderfully. Can't say the same about Patrick. I thought the stuff with Sarah talking about her breast cancer was kind of touching. I thought it was nice that they're all like coexisting in the same house amicably. That's really nice. You know, it means that the kids both have their mom and dad around.
Yeah, I get along really well with Baby Frauded's father and his wife, but I sure the hell wouldn't want to be quarantined all together in the same house. So I give them mad props to that. That's Michael and Juliana and Sarah and her husband Sean and the kids and the dogs.
So
Full House.
Yeah, kudos to them. I don't have thoughts on Family Chantel or Pow that I wish to share.
None of them need any more airtime.
No. I guess the only other thing is, you know, Ben mentioned the wedding he wants to have, right?
That Akini seemed to know nothing about.
The new date.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Visa services are suspended worldwide. It's May right now. Let's say in June they reduce the travel advisory level and embassies begin to staff up to full level. They're going to have a backlog that they have to clear out. It's going to take a while just to get those people over there. That's probably going to take a lot of June. So then July, you're going to start going through some of the backlog. They're not even scheduled yet. There's going to be a lot of internal processing that's going to have to go to retroactively take the I-129F petition for the K-1 and change the expiration date because those are time limited. That's going to be a bureaucratic process. It's going to take a while. Police reports, med reports, those are all going to have expired. So that's all going to have to get redone. She might not get here until August under an optimistic scenario. And so to have a wedding at the same time when she's like, I want to use the whole 90 days. No, fall or winter, most likely.
Well, and they don't even have their interviews scheduled. So, according to what they said, I do think it's fascinating. Ben's facial hair and neck beard was fascinating to me.
So I want to share with you guys one thing I really like about Quarantine Edition, which is that like on normal show, TLC sets things up and they record. So it's kind of like they gather the footage and then they put it together with situations they created to give us a show that they want to see. But with Quarantine, everyone's supplying their own footage, which means it's videos they took of themselves at a time of their choosing, a place of their choosing, and a situation of their choosing. So it's really, the self-quarantine edition is much more like their reflection of themselves than like their seasons on TLC.
It's basically like amateur YouTube hour.
Yeah, but you kind of learn
which is really interesting because like I don't know, like
it says a lot about them, about what
Yes.
they choose to record.
That's exactly right. That's what I love about it.
Is that where you're going with this?
Yes, it tells you so much about them by what they choose to select and send to TLC versus like what TLC sets up with them. It's like tells you a lot where their head's at, and I find that fun to look at.
So I felt bad because I was washing dishes during the Family Chantel portion because everyone knows my opinion on that. It just gets annoying to me, that the whole thing, because then we see Chantel again and she's like complaining about Pedro, where I felt like in her scene she was more like
Loving him. You see the
loving,
you saw
and
the
then this
loving
time she's like,
side
he
of them.
doesn't do anything. I'm like, what else are you supposed to do during quarantine? Like, even the news is telling you to play video games now. One thing with Pow and Russ, I think, if I heard correctly, his mother passed during this time and he wasn't able to see her. His grandmother, thank you. And that was pretty sad. There's a lot of situations right now where people cannot be with their loved ones while they are undergoing surgery, like we saw with Sarah. She had to go in pretty much alone and, go through all that. You mentioned Patrick. I didn't know who he was, so I thought this was like some thrown-in celeb like they did for Pillow Talk.
No, you need to go watch that.
It's
I
so
think that's
bad. I don't want to watch it.
It's the first season of Before the 90 Days.
I saw it so long ago, and I guess he just didn't stick out to me. What did stick out to me, and
he did like backflips everywhere.
The thirst is really strong with him.
Yeah, well, that's why
I
he was
can
on the
imagine.
show.
I mean, he's a DJ, right? Like very outgoing. They like the attention, or they wouldn't be up there doing what they do. I kind of giggled when he said he babysat his kid.
I know, right? No, you don't.
In the
Fathers,
daytime.
pro tip: it's not babysitting when it's your own kid.
I know what he meant though, so I'm not like I'm not like really picking on him, but I just kind of like snorted when he's like, I babysit my kid. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then everyone, I don't know, laughs when I talk about Ben and Akini, but I have to say that her trying to teach him how to dance was above all like the most favorite moment. I was like, bless her soul for trying.
Oh, yeah.
Not gonna happen, but he's trying. And yeah, the magical beard that like grew so much in between the 48 hours of waiting for testing was just magical. But
Magical.
that could have just been, filming and whatnot. But that's pretty much like the impression. I feel like some of the segments are really interesting and then some really fall flat, and that could just be they had lack of footage or what they sent didn't work for them, because TLC is also going to edit, chop, kind of form it in the way that they want to. But yeah, I waiting for more. I think, how many have we gone through? I mean, how many more episodes of this do we have?
I don't know. I'd have to look.
Because when quarantine is over, are they just going to like slam out a marathon?
No, you know what? I think what's going to happen is because The Other Way comes on June 8th, we had a change in premiere date, and that shows on Mondays. So I think they'll put on The Other Way in place of where Quarantine is now. So I would imagine we only have a couple more episodes of Quarantine because The Other Way is going to come out. Originally, it was scheduled June 1st as a premiere date. It's now premiering on June 8th. So I think we have Quarantine until The Other Way is what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, we'll see. And I feel like there was like 40 people, and we've only how many do we see? Like 4 each episode.
I have no idea. That's math.
I don't either.
Shameless self-promotion agency.
You can find me at my website, which is askthevisaofficer.com. There's a contact form you can use for questions about the show or questions about what the website has on offer. And if you have a visa question, you can ask it there.
Excellent. Hanakawa?
Only one place you can find me. That's at 90 Day Fiance Today on Instagram.
Excellent. And I am Frauded by TLC. I want to give a couple of shout outs to our new patrons of our Patreon, which you can find at patreon.com/thefraudcast. That's where we do additional content outside of the 90-day realm. We do other stuff. Last week, we covered the wild and wonderful whites of West Virginia, and we do other reality shows and other content that all comes out on the Fraudcast. For as little as $3 a month, you can join and get that extra content. So a quick thank you to our most recent new patrons is the Tao of Dow, Linda, Melanie, Allison, Amber, Samantha, Cheryl, Melissa, Nancy, Claudia, Shayna, Jane, Nicole, Tracy, and Janice. I think that's it. Thank you guys all for supporting the Patreon. We really appreciate it. It allows us to continue to bring awesome content, both free and for $3 a month. And that is all we've got for you today, you guys. You can find all of this information in the show notes. There'll be links to all of that. You can find me on Instagram at fraudedbytlc. If you like what you're hearing, you enjoy listening to us, and you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please take the time to go ahead and leave us a 5-star review or a rating and review if you enjoy us. And that's all we got for you today. So we hope you're having a safe quarantine. Stay safe, stay home, and we are the Fraudcast, and we're dumpster diving so you don't have to.
This Fraudcast has been produced and edited by yours truly. Art by Sarah Dawdy. Music written, produced, and performed by Ooh Mommy. Further assistance provided by many unnamed fraud consultants.